All right, I wanted to look at a couple of graphic organizers to explain a few of these concepts for GDP and the business cycle. Here at the top, it's showing how GDP is calculated. These are the numbers from second quarter of 2012. So GDP, once again, we're looking at the overall productivity of the United States for just the second quarter. Which is April, May, and June of 2012. Consumer purchases or consumption that consumers had. Obviously, when you look at the size of each one of these circles, they're in relationship to the size that they contribute to GDP. So the largest component of GDP is the consumer purchases. Then next we have business investment. And then the third component is government spending. And then we have our net exports. So we take our exports, subtract how much we import, and then we add that to these other three numbers to get the total gross domestic product. We're looking at how productive we are for that particular quarter. And this has a breakdown of what goes into each one of these. So if we're just breaking down everything that goes into consumer spending, you have durable goods, those things that tend to last a little bit longer, cars, furniture, recreational goods, and just the other things that tend to last longer than a year or so. Non-durable consumer spending, food, drinks, from stores, clothing and shoes, gas, and other things that are very consumable and don't last very long. We're going to add services, housing and utilities, healthcare, transport, recreation, restaurants, financial services, and any other things that consumers spend. That second component right here, business investment, buildings, computers, software, industrial equipment, transportation, other equipment, residential in terms of a business investment type thing, and then inventory. We have to count the inventory. Just because it's not sold and it's sitting in a warehouse somewhere does not mean it was not produced. So we have to include inventory in that. And finally, the government spending, national defense, obviously all those other non-defense spending items, and state and local consumption and investment there. Net exports here, notice once again that the net export number tends to be a negative number because we exported 2.2 trillion, but we imported 2.8. So we have a budget or a trade deficit here because we import more than we export. I thought this graph was kind of interesting. Here we go. When we look at world GDP, so in terms of the productivity of all of these different countries, by far the United States has the largest gross domestic product in terms of how productive our people are. And then we have China, Japan, Germany, France, and so forth and so on. But the United States by far has the largest GDP in the world. And then I wanted to go ahead and just add this graph of the business cycle. We have good times and bad times in our economy, and we can see as things start to go down and things are not as good, we call that a contraction. So businesses aren't doing very well. People aren't spending money. Businesses aren't investing. And eventually we get to this bottom of the economy that's called a trough. And hopefully through monetary and fiscal policy, that will pull us out of the recessions and the depressions and lead towards a time of expansion. And so that's going on the way up. And then typically we see some sort of peak. And then for various reasons, whether there's international incidents going on or you have political parties changing with different views on how the economy should be handled, we can see peaks, we can see troughs, and it's just a cycle. So we have expansion, we have peaks, we have contractions, then we have troughs, and then we have expansions. And so what you'll see is this just up and down, up and down, up and down.